Alright guys, so it's the next day. We've got the engine pretty much ready to go. So now we have both vehicles out here lined up and we're pretty much moving over whatever we need to move over. What do we got to move over? Or what have we already moved over?
We had to move the wiring harness. You had some braided fuel line. You have some braided clutch line. A couple little things like that we're going to be moving over. But for the most part, really not much from the engine bay is part of the swap. It's all in the harness and the engine and the PCM. That's basically where everything's going.
So here's what we look like right now. So we're just about there. We're just about ready to get this engine in.
So far, since we've got the engine bolted in from the bottom, we started connecting the wiring harness, starting from the passenger side, rolling over. It's better if you do it that way, because each little clip will start connecting. Even if you don't know where the connectors go, the wires are only so long enough for them to reach in certain places. I wouldn't worry too much about messing up the firing order, like putting 5 onto 6 or something like that. The wires can only connect to certain locations. A little bit of problem you might get to is when you get the grounding and stuff like that, just remembering where the grounds go. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. Find a spot on the engine or the block or whatever and bolt it down. As long as it's grounded and connected, the engine will run. Then work your way towards the driver's side, connecting everything as you're moving along. When you get to the bell housing part, leave that area alone with all the wiring. Start connecting the heater hoses, the fuel line. Another line you'll have to hook up is the purge valve. It's just a rubber line, hook that up. Once that's hooked up, then go ahead and hook up your shifter cables. If you have an automatic transmission, it'll be easier. You know, you just have one plug connector that'll hook onto the park neutral switch, and then you'll have to hook up one wire or one cable that'll engage park neutral drive, so on and so forth. Then the reason why you didn't want to connect all that other stuff is because a lot of the wiring from the engine compartment has to now meet the engine, and you don't want to start connecting all that stuff up and then figure you have to put hoses and hose clamps and little weird things like that. It'll just end up getting in the way, and then you'll stress wires and bend things in places you shouldn't have to bend them. But as it is right now, what we're hooking up next is going to be the shifter cables. Once those are hooked in, it's fairly simple. It's one snap ring and then a guiding pin, if you will. Put that all together. The cables can only reach a certain distance just because of the bracket, so you can't mix them up. You can, but really not that big of a deal. Put all that together, and then once all that's hooked up, we're going to meet that side of the engine bay to the engine, and pretty much this will all be done. Make sure you connect your O2s up and stuff like that. You can't mess those up because they color coded. Like they'll have a light blue, dark green, and a dark blue. So just follow the order, plug them in, make sure that the wires don't touch the manifold or the exhaust or whatever, zip tie it up out of the way. Wiring harness time.
So you were saying to get this motor mounted, we're gonna have to do some finagling?
Yeah, because it's solid mounts. The last car was converted over to solid mount. It's very rigid and stiff. The rubber will give and you can bend the engine, but what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to kind of help the bolts line up. Make sure you start everything first before you tighten it. Just a little tip, otherwise you'll end up pulling the threads or stripping the bolts or just big mess. But yeah, we'll get that in. Once this one's lined up on this side of the transmission, we'll move to the other side and put the top engine mount on. All of that'll be secure.
So you can see we got these two bolts in over here, and then the other four
Right back here.
Yeah, they're not aligned right now, but we'll move things around to get them lined up.
That's how we do it.